Hare Krishna, Namaste, chapter 18, which is entitled as Sannyasa Yoga. Sloka 40. Asti pṛthivyāṁ va divi deveṣu va punaḥ sattvaṁ prakṛti-jair muktaṁ ebhiḥ syāt tribhir guṇaiḥ. Before one attains the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the spiritual world, as long as we live in this material world, every single living entity, starting from Brahma to a blade of grass, are under the influence of three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. There is no exception to anyone in this program. As long as we are in this material world, we are continuously influenced by these three modes of material nature. If we are living in this world, then we must have body. That body that we have is nothing but a byproduct of pradhan, the mula prakriti. The three modes of material nature, three gunas, are embedded within the prakriti. Since our body is byproduct of that mula prakriti, therefore our body is also of three gunas. And we have studied in detail in chapter 14 that each of these gunas function on its own ways and no one can stop them. And also in this chapter so far we have studied how these gunas functions in various aspects. The idea behind that is to understand the differences between these three gunas and pick the best among these three. To pick the best, we need to know what are the other two which are not good. Keeping that in mind, Krishna elaborated this topic so far, so we can focus on cultivating and increasing that guna which will help us spiritually. So far what we have learned is it is sattva guna which is better among these three by all means. That guna which will lead us to self-satisfaction, self-realization. Therefore, each one of us should work to develop this sattva guna, which is best among the three. One great Arvar, in his work, he said, leave away the two gunas and hold to the one. Over there he did not mention what are the two need to be given up, what is the one need to be picked up. Therefore we should not think, I will give up sattva guna and rajoguna and hold on to tamoguna. Arva did not mention the names because he was in the impression at least we'll have little intelligence to understand what is the one we need to hold on to. If we don't even know that, then we are in the very lower state. The spiritual world is of Shuddha Sattva, whereas this material world is Mishra Sattva, meaning over here there's a mix of Rajas and Tamas along with the Sattva Guna, whereas in the spiritual world it is purely only Sattva Guna. There is no mix of Rajas and Tamas. Since this world is of these three mix, we are part of this world and our body is part of this Prakriti. That is why it is said, it is unavoidable for embodied beings to be free of the influence of these three modes until we attain the supreme abode. That is what is being explained in this particular sloka. Now let's see the meaning of the sloka. Ebhiḥ, from the influence of these, as stated earlier, tribhir guṇaiḥ, from the three modes of material nature, three gunas, prakṛti-jair, born of material nature, yet sattvaṁ, the being which muktaṁ syāt, is free, that creature, pṛthivyāṁ va, either among the beings of this earth, divi deveṣu va punaḥ, or even among the devas in heaven, na asti, is not there. Translation: there is no being existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems which is freed from these three modes born of material nature. In short, this sloka conveys as long as we are in this material creation, there is no exception to be free of the influence from the three modes of material nature. Doesn't matter which planetary system we fall into. That is confirmed here by the term divi deveṣu, among the devas in the upper planets, as devas being used here. The term pṛthivyāṁ refers to Manushya, that to say, from Brahma down to the blade of grass, all the creatures are subject to the sway of the three gunas. In a living being, the gunas can have their ups and downs, but none can be free from them. Only difference is those who live in the higher planets like Swarga and other places got the body which has more of sattva guna. Those who live in this earthly planet influenced mostly by rajoguna, and the lower species are by tamoguna. Not to say that the devatas only have sattva guna, manushas only have rajoguna, and the lower species only have tamoguna. They all have other gunas as well, but those gunas specifically mentioned are prominent in those beings. That's all. This world is referred as samsara, where the repeated birth, death happens. Living entities are with body, and this has been the way for a long period, anadi kala, which cannot be traced back. That's what anadi kala means. The way the body functions is completely based on these three gunas. When the body is of sattva guna is prominent, then the body functions according to the nature of sattva guna. When rajoguna is prominent, then the body functions according to the nature of rajoguna. Likewise, when the body is prominent with tamoguna, the body functions by the nature of tamoguna. Now the question comes, what is the cause for this fluctuation of gunas in our body and mind? Why can't it always be one type of guna? Why sometimes it is sattva, sometimes rajas, sometimes tamas? We should know that we got the body based on our previous anadi kala karma, and for us to exercise our previous karmas, we need a tool, and that tool is this body and senses, included with mind. Based on the karma, either happiness or distress takes in our life that we experience with this body and mind. That is one of the reasons why we got the body. The body is there or given to us so we can go through our previous karma, exercise our previous karma. But the body just doesn't stop there. It is not only to experience the previous karma, it also performs new activities and accumulates new karmas. Now we should understand that which triggers us to do new activities and creating new karmas is fully influenced and controlled by the three gunas that's present in our body. By performing action, impressions, which is called vasanas, get developed. Vasanas, we have seen that earlier also, is nothing but when an action done for multiple times, repeatedly, that becomes an impression within us. And then that vasana makes us to do the same kind of action again and again. Each guna triggers each type of activities. Therefore, when the vasana influences us, it happens due to the action that was performed earlier due to that particular guna. Let me repeat this one more time. Due to the guna, we perform certain activities. As we continue to perform that activity again and again, that becomes our impression, vasana. And this vasana makes us to do an action again based on the activity that we have done earlier due to the influence of guna. That is why we often say it is because of the karma vasana one performs certain activities, which creates new karma. That karma brings in new birth. That birth then makes us to do an activity based on our karma vasana, and this cycle goes on and on. This we have discussed in detail in the same chapter, Sloka 14 and 15, part 12. How avidya leads to karma, karma leads to birth, and that leads to vasana, vasana leads to ruchi, ruchi leads to avidya, avidya to karma, karma to janma, janma to vasana, vasana then ruchi, ruchi to avidya, and this cycle continues. This is also mentioned in Vishnu Dharmam. It says, Abrahma astamba paryantaha jagadantar vyavastitaha praninaha karma janitaha samsara vasavartinaha. From the mighty Brahma to the smallest insect or a blade of grass, all the living entities are bound by their karmas. They are not liberated souls. They are born to experience their karma phalam, the fruits of their activities done earlier. That concludes this sloka, this whole section where Krishna so far elaborated jnana, karma, karta, buddhi, dhriti, sukham based on sattva, rajas and tamas. And it is very clear that sattva guna is best compared to other two. That is the one which will lead us to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leads us towards moksha. This chapter started with a question whether tyaga and sannyasa are same or different. Krishna said they are one and the same. They are synonym. And Krishna said karma has to be given up. Then Arjuna said, I will quit my duties. Krishna said, no. Karma has to be given up doesn't mean you give up your duties and responsibilities, but give up the phalam, the results of your activities, of the karma that you perform, which is said to be phalatyaga. Then Arjuna asked, is phalatyaga sufficient enough? And Krishna said, no. You have to do tribhir. What are those? Kartritva buddhityaha, mamatatyaha, and the one I said earlier, phalatyaga. Therefore, when I say give up karma, it is not the actual duty to be given up. It has to be these three things that has to be given up. When you do the activities for the pleasure of Lord, with the consciousness that everything belongs to Him, and understand you are not the doer, the Lord is the doer. By doing your karma in this way, which is what prescribed in the scripture, the Lord becomes pleased. And this is what's said to be tyaga or sannyasa. Then the question came, how do I develop this mood of tyaga and sannyasa? Krishna said, you need to develop sattva guna. Unless one has sattva guna, one will not be able to perform the tribhir, as I mentioned. Then Arjuna asked Krishna to explain more in detail on this topic. Then Krishna said, for you to do tyaga, as I mentioned, you need to know about jnana, karma, karta, buddhi, dhriti, sukham. Arjuna said, well, I have jnana, I perform karma, I am the karta. Buddhi, yes, I have intelligence. Determination, I have. Sukham, obviously I am going to get. And Krishna said, well, there are differences with these things based on the gunas. There is sattvika jnana, rajasa jnana, tamasa jnana. Likewise, sattvika sukham, rajasa sukham, tamasa sukham. Each one of these things are in threefold divisions. Therefore, the tyaga is based on these three gunas. You can see even the karta, the doer, falls into these three divisions. Action itself, the karma, falls into three gunas. Knowledge falls into three gunas. So Arjuna asks, is that all? So I need to know jnana, karma, karta, which is of three gunas. No, that's not enough. You also need to know something called buddhi, which also of three gunas. Is that all, Krishna? Not yet. There is something called dhriti, firmness, determination. That means when you take up an action, activity, a karma, there could be a lot of obstacles on its way. One still stays firm to get their action done. That is called dhriti. That also falls into three gunas. Is that all, Krishna? Not yet, Arjuna. Anyone who performs an action, they are expecting some happiness. That happiness also falls under three gunas. It is only when one develops sattva guna, it gives them a sattvika sukham. When one develops sattva guna, as the sattva guna grows, the tyaga that I mentioned becomes more effective. So whatever people do according to their assigned duty, varna, ashrama, it gradually leads them into liberation if they follow the program of sattva guna. In other words, it is only due to anadikala karma we have been given this body, we have taken birth. The birth happens. Once we are born, we get engaged in so many activities, new activities. We always want to experience something new, want to see something new, want to taste something new, so forth. But we should know that these new activities that we are trying to perform should help us to release us from this world. Those activities which are stated in the scripture. When we follow the scripture, the Lord becomes pleased and helps us to progress towards the spiritual world. For us to get the grace of the Lord, then we use our body and senses as mentioned in the scripture with tribhir. So one more time, we got this body based on our previous karma, and as per our body we get engaged into certain activities. By doing that assigned duties, that should gradually elevate us towards the spiritual world. If not, then we will go further deep into this material world, having less chance to get rid of the samsara. So now the question is, who are those people? How do we know what is their assigned duties? What are they supposed to do? And that is what Krishna is going to start explaining from the next sloka. One gets the body based on one's previous karmas. Based on the previous karma, one takes birth in a Brahmana family, Kshatriya family, Vaishya family, or Sudra family. So the body that they get differ based on the gunas. If one has taken a birth in a Brahmana family, they must have done some good karmas in the previous lives. And the guna, which is in their body and mind, will influence them to perform more of good activities. Now a big monstrous question comes into our mind. What about Ravana, who was born as a Brahmana? If he has got that body because of his previous karma, birth, then he must have been influenced by sattva guna. Rather, he seemed to be towards rajas and tamas. He went to the extreme of kidnapping Mother Sita. What about Prahlad? By birth, he was asura, but his activities were towards sattva guna. There are a lot of such questions may come into our mind. All that will be discussed in coming up slokas. To conclude this sloka, either among the men in this world or among the gods in heaven, there is not a single being free from the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. The idea of this sloka is that the embodied beings are subject to the influence of the gunas. There is no escape. With that, Krishna concluded this entire section and then going to start explaining who are those people who fall into these gunas and what are their duties and how that helps them to progress towards liberation. Na tad asti pṛthivyāṁ vā divi deveṣu vā punaḥ sattvaṁ prakṛti-jair muktaṁ ebhiḥ syāt tribhir guṇaiḥ. Namaste. Hare Krishna.